Welcome to the webinar.
Welcome and thank you for joining us today for 2019 EFA Design Showcase, a presentation of industry-leading design excellence, a SAGE webinar presented by Rob Simonetti, Carol Elia, Joseph Billig, Ray Yancey, and David McGill. My name is Rob Simonetti. I'm Design Director at SWBR, current SAGE President, and a Design Showcase Juror. Today I will be moderating this webinar. At this time, I'd like to invite our other panelists to please introduce themselves, starting with Carol.
Hi everyone, I'm Carol Elia. I'm a Philadelphia-based interior design firm, focused and passionate for over 23 years on environments for aging adults. Been happy to have been serving on this jury this year, as well as for many other years in the past. And I've been a part of the SAGE group for probably over 7 years now. So anxious to get underway with our presentation today and to give you some of the jury comments after each of these presentations.
Great. Thanks, Carol. My name is Joe Billig. I have been very fortunate to be the in-house architect for Touchmark for the past 24 years, overseeing the architecture and interior design of our 13 communities located throughout the country. It has been such a unique opportunity to work for a developer and operator. I spend quite a bit of time going back to our communities, which is invaluable in talking with staff and caregivers, residents and family members about the physical environment and how we can constantly improve and innovate. It is so exciting to see how the senior housing industry has grown over the decades, attracting amazing design talent. As EFA showcases, great design spans all ages and generations, so please continue to push the envelope and share your designs and submit your projects. Thank you.
Hi, this is Ray Yancey. I'm the Director of Senior Living with LRS Architects in Portland, Oregon. And our firm, we have 140 plus professionals and staff, with 50 of those dedicated to senior living. We've been doing this for over 30 years, and our projects range over 30 states and 4 countries. And professionally, I've been doing this for 30 years myself, with 15 years focused on senior living, which includes a mix of for-profit and nonprofit projects that have a full range of IL, AL, memory care, and skilled nursing projects. And one thing that has really informed me in my senior living is my past experience includes mixed use, hospitality, and mission-based, such as schools and religious projects.
All right, my name is David McGill, and I am a Vice President and Senior Designer with SFCS Architects. And I have been involved in senior design now for over 30 years at this firm, and before that I was involved in constructing and building senior projects for about 6 years, and been doing most of my research currently by getting old and becoming a senior myself.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We're really pleased that you're able to make it and share all the information about these projects and the jury comments. SAGE is pleased to present AIA-approved webinars every month. These webinars are free to SAGE members, and we have made this one today available to non-members as well. Please visit sagefederation.org for information on SAGE membership. I think you'll find that the $95 for an annual membership is money very well spent. This session was originally presented at the Environments for Aging Conference earlier this year in Salt Lake City. If you've never attended the conference, I strongly suggest you consider attending in 2020, which will be in Louisville. The content, connections, and inspirations you'll enjoy at EFA are well worth the financial investment to travel and attend. And SAGE members do enjoy a 10% savings on the EFA conference registration, which will more than pay for that SAGE membership. Attendees, you will be muted throughout the entire webinar. You will have the option to type any questions by clicking the Q&A button at the top of your screen at any time. We will answer those questions at the conclusion of the session as time allows. Sage is an AIA-approved provider, and participants in this course are eligible for an AIA Learning Unit. Please note that you must be registered for and logged into the webinar to receive the AIA credit or a certificate of completion. Sage will report the credits earned by course attendees to AIA CES and will provide certificates of completion within 1 week if you have requested that. If you did not enter your member number or request your certificate of completion upon registration, please email info@sagefederation.org and you'll be able to do that. The information presented in today's presentation is protected by copyright. So as noted in the webinar registration, which you all signed up for, this webinar will highlight some of the award-winning projects from the Environments for Aging Design Showcase 2019 edition. Representatives of the team, each of the winning teams, will share their unique perspectives on the projects and some of the highlights and challenges of their design solutions. And Carol, one of our showcase jurors, will also share some of the thoughts of the jurors and those deliberations that brought these 3 projects forward as honorable mentions and award winners. Our learning objectives, again, as stated in the registration, to look at some of the design attributes, challenges, and solutions of each of the projects, to understand some of the industry trends that the jurors saw in the projects as a whole and see what we might want to bring forward to future projects, to learn how senior housing providers are positively impacting their residents through some of the solutions and experiences offered here. And we'll also look at the design competition itself, the submission, and review and award process. So first, let's start with the submissions themselves and the competition. The EFA Design Showcase competition is published each year in the spring issue of Environments for Aging. And the showcase offers a compilation of architecture and interior design projects representing really outstanding and innovative design solutions in new or renovated senior care environments. And each year, that magazine published in April really does become a resource for the industry for the remainder of the year and beyond. You know, I've really seen as architects and designers going into that edition and really looking to see what are people doing. These are the best projects that the nation has to offer. Seeing what our competition is doing, seeing what other communities are doing, and the providers do the same and really see what their colleagues are doing elsewhere. Personally, as an architect, this past spring, I had a client here in Rochester, New York, point to the magazine, point to a particular project, one of the winners from last year, and says, "I want that for my residents in our new project." And so, really, it really is a really important piece of work. The submissions this year, actually registration for the competition is due on Friday. That's just registration, just acknowledge that you would like to participate. And then the actual submission of the award materials is due December 6th. So there's still plenty of time. And hopefully seeing today's presentation of the 3 projects will inspire you to consider how your project might fit into the design showcase. Once submitted, each year I've been a design juror 4 or 5 years out of the last 6. Each year there's probably 50 to 60 submissions made. So what will happen is SAGE works with a group of others, Center for Health Design, the International Interior Design Association, and the American Society of Interior Designers to put together a jury for the competition, including architects, interior designers, providers, regulators, and researchers, as well as other consultants to the industry, including manufacturers, anyone who's really passionate and informed about the senior care industry. So we start by splitting into teams, roughly 4 or 5 people each across disciplines, and EFA, or Emerald Exposition, the organizer, will send out electronic copies of the submissions. Each team will receive about 25% of the submissions, and they'll look at those virtually on their own time in December, and provide feedback on each of the submissions along that criteria of aesthetics, innovation, collaboration, and operational performance. They'll also provide comments about anything they see in the submissions. EFA will then take all those early acknowledgments and ratings, and from the 4 teams, they'll put together a shorter list of some, usually 10 to 15, sometimes a few more finalists. Those are the best projects as rated by the virtual review amongst all the teams to move forward to the live deliberation. And from there, the jury will actually then travel and meet somewhere in the country. This past year in January, it was at the T. Boone Pickens Hospice Center, which was one of the 2018 Design Showcase winners. So that's a really exciting opportunity for the jurors to be able to go to last year's winning submission, winning community, and be able to experience that community firsthand and see what it's really all about. So it's great. It's really a wonderful day and a half. Emerald Exposition hosts it, does a fantastic job, and for me, it's been really rewarding, being with what I would consider some of the best people in the industry, people who can really look into the submissions and really dig deep, and have a lot to offer. I can tell you that none of the submissions slide through without significant questioning and probing and debate. It's a great process that at the end, I'm confident really does bring forward just the best and recognizes as honorable mention and winners, the ones that really should be. So if any of you are interested in participating as a juror, myself, I organize the jury on behalf of SAGE each fall, and you can reach out to myself or to Lori Bridgman at SAGE and let us know you're interested, and we'll put you on the list for consideration for next year's event. Next year being 2021, because actually today I have to finalize the jury for this January. So with that, we'll turn it over to Ray to talk Springs Living at Lake Oswego.
Thanks, Rob. Certainly an honor to be selected this past year as an honorable mention and being part of this selection group, and being recognized for our part in contributing to the transforming that's occurring in senior living. The Springs Living is a long-term client. Been working with them since 2008, and they're a for-profit provider, developing and operating continuing care communities since 1996, and they have 17 properties in Oregon and Montana. Located in Lake Oswego, the project for us started in 2015. The owner of the Springs had his eye on this site at the time. It's located in Lake Oswego in a very prominent location. It had kind of been, I believe it was a difficult site to develop, and there were a number of factors that, being that the jurisdiction has a lot of zoning restrictions. The site had over 30 feet of grade change from top to bottom. Access was very limited, and so had sit there for a long time. And so when they came to us, they were really looking for some creative solutions and how we could fit their project on this site. The site's 5 acres. If we could turn this, go to the next slide. The site is rectangular in shape, which helped, but there were certain aspects that we needed to focus on. One was the prominent corners. Both the sides are oriented north to the top and south to the bottom, and so we were limited in access, and we needed to have that off Cruiseway Place, which is the slide. The other two were not allowed to have access, and so we had to think about how we could provide both a main entry and a service access to the site. we wanted to energize the main corners on Boone's Ferry and Cruise Way, and so we picked the main entry to be one of the aspects that would emphasize one of the corners, and then the other was to create more opportunities to spill out and energize the street edge along Boone's Ferry, which is a fairly busy street. And so we had to be careful how we did that. And one of the things that we did is it's slightly elevated to help kind of create a separation between the street and the activities, so residents had the opportunity to kind of at their level of engagement along those edges. We also were required through the zoning to provide a gateway to the district in this area. And so a public plaza was decided to be located at the main intersection of Boone's Ferry and Cruise Way, which is the south corner of the site, which works in our favor. We felt to create a nice sunny place and an opportunity to allow active parts of the building spill out to those areas. The building orientation is south facing, that allowed us to provide some two internal courtyards that will have a lot of access to daylighting and bring daylighting into the core portion of the building. The building is also shaped in a way that allowed it to engage the street, so you can kind of see the chamfered corners, but also allowed to reduce corridor lengths and those types of things in the building itself. Next slide. This is the first floor. There's actually one level below, which is just dedicated to parking. Because of the slope of the site, and the size, the overall project had 216 units. And so parking was certainly a challenge. And one way we did that was to kind of push it into the side of the hill and allow the residential and amenity spaces access to more daylighting in that regard, and minimize the amount of parking on site, which was something the city preferred, and the neighbors, when we met with them, certainly were supportive of that direction as well. This provides direct connection for residents to park in the building out of the weather and access the building itself. This plan here shows the main IL components of the building. Main entry to the right side of the screen brings you into the site, but as you can see, as you come in, you're connected directly with the internal IL courtyard, so daylighting and natural environment is always part of your experience in the building. And then as it wraps around and provides activities that front Boone's Ferry and the corner, those allow for those spaces to spill out and create active zones along that and activating the street edge. Service was brought around from the top. One thing from the zoning perspective, we had to save, there was quite a zone along both edges of the street where we had to preserve mature trees, which we saw as benefiting the overall project, because as soon as the building's built, there's going to be a sense of this mature landscaping, and you really can't afford to pay for that new landscaping. So we really saw that as a great opportunity to screen the edge of Cruise Way, and there is a slope there down to the street, so that kind of creates some separation from the building in that regard, and allowed us to put some service activities in what we're calling kind of the back side of the site there. The activities here wrap around and include wellness, activity, theater, so that there's kind of a more public aspect as you come in and wrap around to dining and those venues, and then as you circle back into the building as well, wellness is, and it's a little more private feeling. And this connects directly to the assisted living that's on the upper level, so they have free access to use these areas as well directly from their part. Slide.
Ray, this is Rob. I just want to let you know that we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
Okay.
So if you could make sure you're really facing the speaker, you're sort of coming in and out a little bit.
Okay, sure. Next slide. So on the next slide, this one here, the building is kind of divided floor by floor. So this is the first floor of assisted living, and because of the slope of the site, it actually has its own entryway, which is left-hand side of the building. It has parking and also has memory care at this level. And in the state of Oregon, the memory care is required to be on the ground floor because, again, the sloping of the site that afforded us to be able to locate that on the ground level and have direct access from all of the units to grade. And then the assisted living, which is on the southern portion, at the lower part of the site, those are elevated and have their own kind of central core piece down through the middle of the building to really provide an active aspect for them. The idea is that we want to have this kind of central core with all the activity spaces that can also spill out into these internal courtyards. So they have a secured outdoor space, connections to that directly from those active spaces. This is assisted has both an activities courtyard, which is the northern courtyard. This shares with the memory care courtyard, which is separated with a fence, which is integrated into the landscape so that it feels much softer and connected with the landscape. In the active courtyard, there's a dog run and outdoor seating and other types of activities they can do out there. And then there's the dining courtyard, which goes directly from their dining area, which has some raised planters and a barbecue area. And it overlooks the IL courtyard, which is the lower courtyard to the right side of the AL dining courtyard. The next slide is going to kind of represent our more standard floor plate. This essentially has AL apartments on here. We do have services integrated into this floor plan, as well as a reception area from the main elevator core, which connects all the floor levels located right-hand side of the central core area. It's kind of the idea that we want to bring everybody to a central activity space to really activate that. And so we haven't kind of decentralized a lot of the activity spaces. We're all kind of brought to that second floor to assist with that aspect. The fourth floor, which we don't have a plan of, is the first floor of the IL, and it's a similar configuration as this. The next slide will have the fifth floor, which is a floor that, next slide, Rob. So the fifth floor really takes advantage of one of the big issues that we had on the site, which was a 45-foot height restriction. And so that height restriction had to follow the grades of the site. And so it kind of forced us to drop half a floor off on the southern part of the site, which gave us this opportunity for this fantastic terraced courtyard on the south part of the building. This, from my perspective, is really transformational for this type of product. You don't see a lot of projects that have this extensive rooftop terrace, and we were able to really utilize it for a lot of different aspects to the site. There's a large putting green. There's a bocce volleyball court, there's raised gardens, there's a dog run, we have a barbecue area, we have an outdoor kind of a wine bar that spills out onto this area. There's extensive seating components, but the fabulous part is just you being able to go out there and really connecting to kind of a broader landscape that you just can't really gain when you're on grade. And so it just gives you a whole new perspective, and it's really turning out to be a wonderful place for the overall community. Next slide. The architectural design for the project got its start really from the city had a very strict architectural styles that you had to pick from. And so this area is a transitional area between a campus office, brick 4 to 8 story office buildings to a residential area. And so we were trying to think of how we kind of fit into that transition, provide for a residential feel and meet the architectural styles that were available to us. And so we landed on Sullivan-esque was one of the styles that was available. And we took that and studied it and integrated that into this building in a way that allowed us to have flatter roofs that helped with our height. It gave us a mix of vertical elements and recesses to create a more residential feeling building. We mixed in brick to kind of fit the office piece, but provided a warmer, richer tones that more residential in feel. And kind of this overall warmer palette with accents of wood soffits to help create that residential aesthetic in the overall design. We worked with the city and the neighbors. They were instrumental in kind of supporting the project as we developed it and showed them kind of various iterations of the design, and actually, contributed to some of where we ended up with the building, and it was really a great process in working with them. Next slide. So this slide shows the corner feature. This piece was needing to create kind of this gateway to the district, and also our idea was to really be able to bring people out from the building and add activity. So from the dining, you can spill directly out. It is elevated to create this level of engagement that residents want. And then it shows the upper rooftop terrace as well with the that provides another level of engagement along this corner. Next slide. This is one of the interior courtyards, showing the integration of the memory care screen area. These have nice south light coming into them, and on the left-hand side, the AL can spill out into these areas, and you can kind of see the dog run there on the right side of this slide. On the next slide, this shows kind of the overall corner again, showing the integration of the roof terrace, the lower level activity areas along the street edge, the dining in the center, and on the right side, the bar bistro area as it spills out into the edge of the street. Provided covered areas, glass in this instance, to have nice levels of lighting, but in our climate, that's helpful to help invite residents out to the outside. Next slide. I'm going to go through a few of these amenity spaces here. This is just outside the wine bar, barbecue area, kind of a large scale chess set, seating area with outdoor TV, and few other seating areas for people to be outside and take advantage of the views. And the next slide shows early renderings of the main entry area. This is a double height space. We wanted to provide a larger scale, a sense of space as you came into the building. In this case, we had to wrap a 3-hour assembly around this to allow us to punch through the PT slab at this level. So it got a little complicated, but it was worthwhile to be able to have that larger scale as you walk into the building. And then you can see the views beyond on the right slide into the central courtyard. Then the next slide shows the main aisle dining. This again has a double height space, similar aspects of wrapping the 3-hour assembly around to allow that to occur. On the left slide, you can see again the area where you can spill out to the dining courtyard and onto the corner of the site and engage the edge. In this next slide, we have Fancho's Lounge, which is a casual dining. It's right next to the main dining room, but there is kind of a central hub of the bar and some dining so people can have breakfast and other types of meals, more casual environment. And again, out the windows, you can see the covered outdoor area that spills out along the street. And then the wine bar on the next slide, this is on the rooftop terrace. This again is a smaller venue. It allows people to connect and engage and have smaller activities, but then also helps support the outdoor terrace and people can have activities and then push out to the outside and take advantage of that as well. The next couple of slides I'll probably go through here pretty quickly. This is a pool, again, taking advantage of the south light in the courtyard. The courtyards were very invaluable in really being able to have these spaces wrap around and gather that kind of natural light into those spaces. The next slide shows the theater. This is a 100-seat theater. It's tiered, fixed seating, but also has on the main level some area that allows for tables and chairs so they can have dining events or staff meetings and those kinds of things. So it's a little more flexible than just purely fixed seat theater. And then the next slide shows our initial unit package. This shows we actually had 3 different packages. This shows more the white package, which became pretty popular. We also had an alder and a mahogany style darker as well, and the white seemed to be the winning choice for most people. Then the last slide, I think, just shows the project in its context. You can kind of see the larger buildings out and around, and then they start to transition as you come down out of the slide, and so it's quite fitting quite a lot onto the site. But I think that it fits the context and is really feels at home when you drive by. And we're getting finished right now, and it looks like residents will be moving in about the next 2 weeks. And I think Carol is next and has some discussion about the jury comments.
Well, this project really had us all at hello. I think it really fits the bill for just about anybody to feel comfortable in the space, no matter what the age is. And as a jury, we looked at 4 specific categories. This particular project excelled in all 4 categories: innovation, collaboration, operational performance, which in this case had to be suggestive because it's not necessarily open yet, but the entry did submit some aspect of what the performance and what we thought the layout would provide in so far as operational performance of this building. So we were able to gather that from the entry. And of course, aesthetics. I mean, it really did have us at hello. everything about this project was quite beautiful. It was hard to really get into the nitty-gritty and not be overwhelmed by the aesthetic. I certainly would love to live here. As was stated by Ray, the entry had a really important challenge that the jury thought was highly commendable, and it was the use of this very restrictive corner-like site that didn't have a vast amount of acreage to comply with. So we love the solution and the use of the site, this sloping site especially. We love the use of the outdoor spaces and the creation of indoor and outdoor. We love the use of the land and the integration of how all of the aesthetics were brought inside as well as outside. The interior matched the exterior in as far as look and quality and the level of the design. So we really like that. And as an interior designer, I appreciate that when the architecture and the interior actually works together as one. One thing I will mention, and we only gave one really award of merit this year as a jury. We gave 2 honorable mentions, and sometimes we see that differ year to year. It's not that we didn't find lots of projects terrific. There were many that qualified as a finalist. The reason this may not have jumped and surged into a award of merit and received an honorable mention is fortunately for us, we had the 4 participants of our jury that were the other included an occupational therapist. And not that that negates anything, but it does bring a different point of view to the jury. One case and point here was that we looked specifically at some of the layouts and tried not to get too overwhelmed with the interior design and the exterior design. And we really looked at layout and room layout. And one comment that may be gone to the negative, which we do give comments so that the team, the project team, will have feedback for maybe a future project. One comment came up that maybe the location of the bed in the memory care to the bathroom or the toilet was maybe not as viewed as easily as some of the other projects we had seen, or maybe not as innovative as the rest of the whole project. And there was a comment that came from one of the jurists about the theater. The steps were great, tiered seating is awesome, but maybe the design of the floor had a busy pattern. So we do bring that back up and we give that feedback back to the project team so that in the future they might be able to build from that and continue to create wonderful designs and really move forward in a positive way. So with that, I will introduce our next presenter, which is David McGill of SSCS Architects with a project in Thistletown, New Holland, PA, which is actually in my backyard. So I'm hoping to visit this one very soon. Take it away, David.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In the review of this project, I hope that we're going to see something that overrides the rules and laws that govern the routine of our daily lives. And that something is belief. It's what we believe in. At its core, what we believe is what motivates us. And in the case of Garden Spot Village, they actually honor what they say their mission statement is. It was about 15, 16, 17 years ago, I first met Steve Lindsay, and we were working on a project together. And I'm always curious about the mission statements of a firm. So I asked him, I said, at our very first meeting, I said, yeah, can you tell us a little bit about your mission statement? And without missing a beat, he said, oh, that's, our mission statement is to serve the elderly as an expression of Christ's love. And I sat there frozen. I said, well, if that's your mission statement, let's get on with it. Because it is such a simple and elegant statement. That meeting and that exchange has stuck with me for a very long time. So what we're going to see here today is both an experiment in social engineering and an exercise in social grace. Next slide. When we look at the project, this drawing here, I probably should have moved to the end of the presentation, but I'll comment on it here now. This drawing actually represents hope and possibility for what's coming in the future for senior living across the country. Everyone in this webinar knows what's coming with the next generation of seniors and the challenges that are going to be there. So I want to add to their mission statement one phrase, Romans 12:5. So in Christ, we who are many form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. And I just love that concept that each member belongs to all the other. So that when I look at this, I go 5 residents times 5 houses equals neighbors. And so, of course, our hope for Thistledown is that all 5 houses will eventually be built, and that this project is going to be viewed not just as a single house on a lot, but as an example that as this project grows, we will see this model grow and be brought to many communities throughout the country. Let's go to the next slide. So at its core, this project is not about the sticks and the bricks. Is it a nice house? Is it a competent house? Yes, it is. But what this project is about, it's about an idea. It's about an idea that I think may have the power to redefine and reshape the future of senior living housing for the coming generation. It is designed to serve low and moderate income people. And as an architect, simply put, it's a house and a home. It's built from conventional and commonly available materials. So you have to ask the question, what makes this project so different? Next slide. If I had to say what makes the project different, I would say that it is mission, grace, and purpose. The mission, again, was to serve as an expression of Christ's love. The grace was the way it was built and the people who actually built it. And just the multitude of people that came together to see that this project was built. And the purpose is that we design and build a supportive environment for people that are coming to live here, while at the same time recognizing that each of these people have their own histories. And because they're seniors, they have long histories. So I think that became a lot of the foundation for the design. And what you're going to see is that the design challenges were actually very subtle manipulations of very ordinary things. Next slide. On my many travels through Pennsylvania, I was going by New Holland, and I thought, I'm just going to pop in and see how they're doing. And when I got there, it was about at this state. It was just a little further along than what you see here. And I jumped out of the car, and without announcing myself, no one else was there. I just sort of walked around the building, and I began to notice something. And I began to notice that there was writing all over the studs. And it was on the joists and the studs and the headers, and the writings were blessings and short prayers and just well-wishing of the residents that would come to live there. And it wasn't in a few locations, there were hundreds of these. So that the people that came together, you see in the lower corner down there, the lower right-hand corner, you see people that are fabricating the window boxes there. In the upper corner, you see people carrying material to the site, and these are volunteers. These are some construction folks with experience mixed with with residents from the community. So again, I look at this project and I go, this is grace in action. Next slide. So what are the subtleties that we're talking about here? One of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to design it so that, this is a 5-bedroom house with 5 bathrooms. It's actually 5.5 bathrooms for guests also. But we wanted to design it in such a way that it just wasn't that simple. Because now all of a sudden we've got to look at this as though in this kitchen, if there are 5 people living here, and although they are co-living together, they might want their own cabinets. They certainly might want their own bathrooms. And so we have this, this expanse between the most public spaces, which are defined by the dining room and the living room, and then the most private spaces that were defined by the bedrooms. Next slide. So here we're looking, and although it's not overt, although it's not obvious, those cabinets are designed in such a way that each resident has an upper cabinet and a lower cabinet. They each have space in the refrigerator. And then there's common dining here, or there's also dining where you can sit and eat at the bar. In the lower corner on the left, you also see a little screen wall. And the subtlety of the screen wall was, again, just to basically say, let's keep this plan as open and as lively as possible. But let's also sort of separate that front porch experience on the one side of the house and then the dining porch experience on the other side of the house. And let's just sort of use this sort of wooden screen here just to bring in a sense of grace and a sense of elegance, but also to separate that so as people come and go, if you're at the dining room table, you're not going to be feel like they're invading your privacy. Next image. We move into the living room space, and because these are the most public spaces, we thought, oh, well, let's loft the ceiling in there. So we loft the ceiling in the living room and the dining room. We bring in some cove lighting in there. And again, with very simple materials, we're talking wood studs and drywall, but with just a little bit of spatial differentiation, we take that which is the most public of spaces and we give it some extra spatial qualities that sort of lift the experience of being in there. And then as you go back into the other spaces, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, and stuff like that, the ceilings come down and they become a little more intimate. Next slide. So in the bedrooms, you also see something else. Now keep in mind, this is 4 or 5 people living here. Now, in our own homes, in our own apartments, in our own houses, everything in the building is sort of ours, okay? When you move to a cooperative living house, you've got a bedroom and a bathroom, and that's certainly your private space. So what can we do there to just sort of subtly make that space expand a little bit so you've got more than just the bedroom and the bathroom? The window seat is a good example of that, with additional glass in the transoms above, with the window seat below. We bring in more light with the window seat. We also have that storage space for winter clothes, for personal effects and things like that. And then go to the next slide, please. And then we come back to the living room here, but off the living room, behind this set of sliding barn doors, is also a parlor space. And in this parlor space, what we're seeing is we have 5 people living together, and we have to ask ourselves, do they always want to be together? No. So is there a breakout space that would allow this sort of parlor space where you could go and maybe there's a visitor coming to visit you and you want to talk privately? So we wanted to accommodate that, and yet we also took advantage in, let's go to the next slide, please. We also took advantage upstairs in that we also have a second room upstairs that might be a room for watching TV or for playing a game, or yet again, for entertaining someone else there. So in this slide here, what we're sort of trying to land on here is the idea that this should not be a one-off project. You know, this project, I had the opportunity to call Steve earlier this week, and I asked him the question that I've been dying to ask him for months now. I said, Steve? He said, yeah. I said, how's it going? And he said, it's going great. It is meeting all expectations. And so I am very, very much looking forward to the interest in this project to continue to grow, because I think Steve would agree that we don't see this as a one-off project at all. But what we're looking at here is an example of what prayer, people, and a good idea can do. And with that, I'll turn it over.
Well, David, yes, this is something, a project that the jury really found just kind of eye-opening. We've never seen a project like this before, and I can say that honestly, being on the jury for quite a few years in different years over the past decade, that this was just an eye-opener. We thought that it was really answering the important challenge of you know, how do we deal with this population that's growing and growing, and the never-ending story of affordable housing. So co-housing and cooperative living is certainly the answer. It's awesome to see that you're taking a step in this direction. And we particularly gave it honorable mention for that main reason. And then all the supporting factors, like the total construction cost. I went back and looked into some of the notes and the original entry and saw that this project was looking around $390,000 to create the entire thing. This was a donated materials type project. It was a volunteer-based project. So we then saw that as another aspect of the project that made it even more spectacular. And we're very happy to see it come in under $100 a square foot. So I was commending that just in and of itself. The jury found this project unique. We love the simplicity of the design. I particularly loved, and it's actually in the spring edition of the Environments for Aging magazine, the front entry blue door. It's like a teal blue and it just pops. It gives a sense of modernism to this very simple design. Being in Lancaster, PA, or in thereabouts in that area, it just fit with the community, and I think it's very acceptable for the community. There's no better example of collaboration of community planning, donations, the services, the volunteerism. The community bought into this and are supporting it. We thought it was an excellent job of meeting the needs of the community with this creative, collaborative solution. And I love one of the slides in here, and I thought this is a good time to point this out for those of you who are listening and maybe considering putting in an entry for the coming year. We as a jury love to see slides where we see people. You have to get sign-offs for that kind of thing when actual residents are being used or staff are being used. So keep that in mind. But we do love slides where residents are actually in the pictures. I loved specifically a slide with the woman on the sofa in the living room. She has her laptop out, and I just thought that was kind of cute. Just so she's watching TV, but she's got her laptop out, and I thought that was kind of cool with another resident sitting nearby. But keep in mind when residents are in the photographs that you should get, signature and sign-offs for photo releases for these residents to be in. One other comment that I had particularly as a jurist, and it didn't really get written up in the magazine, but I like the particular use of ambient light throughout the space, adding just that touch of cove lighting. This space didn't need to do that, but it did it. So it took that extra step. We love those coves and the extra light that it provided as ambient light in the spaces. I love the fact that there was decorative lighting. Don't love the lamp in the living room, but the decorative lighting in the space. And then there, of course, was task lighting. So the use of all that very simple lighting to gain, an easy way for residents to maneuver and to use their spaces. I love the modern design of the kitchen cabinets. And I think the jury commented that the living environments here were very comfortable, very useful. And it did offer a really great sense of private space versus communal space. And with that, I'm going to pass this on to the next speaker today. And we have Joe Billig of Touchmark, who's going to present us with Touchmark of West Hills.
Great. Well, thank you, Carol. Well, Touchmark in the West Hills is a project that was over 10 years in the planning, purchasing multiple single-family parcels to create 80 contiguous acres atop 2 extinct cinder cones 3 miles from downtown Portland, Oregon. The patience, perseverance, and vision to create a flagship property resulted in a location offering unparalleled views of the Coast Range and amenities not typically found in senior housing. On the next slide, we can see the site plan. The community is located on 12 of an 80-acre master plan site, taking inspiration from such iconic landmarks as the Banff Springs Hotel and Northwest Resorts and Clubs. 2 structures anchor into the steep terrain with over 100 feet of vertical elevation between the lowest and highest stories. The buildings run parallel with the grade and step up the hill, acting as giant retaining walls. The Clubhouse Lodge accommodates independent living in 2 wings with common area amenities in the center. A sky bridge connects the clubhouse to the Terrace Lodge, which houses the licensed care assisted living and memory care neighborhoods. In the foreground, there are 6 single-family homes that provide a transition to the existing neighborhood, and a new multifamily product with 4 high-end condos or stacked flats per building with parking below and a private elevator was also developed for this project. And then you may notice to the left of the buildings there, we actually have a working vineyard on site as well. In the next slide, there were several areas that were just too steep to build on, but had the perfect soil and climate and elevation to grow our Northwest Pinot. We hired a full-time winemaker and have started construction on a working production winery and tasting room right on the site. Residents enjoy touring the vineyards and learning about winemaking. They also enjoy pickleball, bocce ball, and outdoor amphitheater and greenhouse, provide more opportunities for residents to connect to outdoors and with each other. Next slide, please. On the, one of our biggest challenges, of course, was the topography. The team collaborated with the fire department to establish maximum road grades, ladder access, and how we would measure building heights. Working parallel with the contours to use the buildings as large retaining walls and creating benches on the site allowed for some relatively flat areas for parking and walking. The contractor used radio mapping to locate veins of basalt that ran through the site, many of which had to be blasted to provide for foundations and utilities. And that's always fun to relay to the neighbors. And of course, we started excavation and foundation work in the winter, which happened to be one of the wettest on record, creating more challenges with runoff and erosion control. In the next slide, many of our meetings were focused on parking. They just dominated many of the design meetings and was one of several pragmatic challenges to solve. With such a steeply sloping site, there were few areas to accommodate parking for residents, staff, and guests. Because we wanted a taller floor plate for the Health and Fitness Club located on the ground level, we were able to carry that height into the parking garage, which allowed for use of car stackers, doubling the amount of parking in each garage. Obviously, this posed some safety concerns about residents' ability to safely operate this machinery, and we quickly concluded that the project would have to offer valet parking. While the valet operation created continuing operational costs for the community, the hospitality of a valet in uniform personally greeting residents and guests is priceless. On the next slide, we see the Sky Bridge. The Sky Bridge was a very important feature that allows the independent and licensed care to connect, so family members and staff can move back and forth easily and allow residents easy access to all areas of the building. It is not uncommon to see a resident from independent living escorting a spouse who lives in memory care across the bridge to the bistro for an ice cream out on the terrace. A resident from assisted living can easily access the pool without having to go outside or travel long distances. During the design process, a clock tower was added to denote the entry and arrival court for both buildings. The bridge and the clock tower were a constant target for VE during the bidding and the construction phase and while we were looking at that, but really was a non-negotiable because we knew how important the connectivity was. On the next slide, we'll see the floor plan, kind of just a typical floor here. The floor plans are fairly simply laid out in organization and circulation. You can see the independent building in front with a center core that houses all the common area functions in orange there, with the residents in blue in the two wings. The elevator lobbies are on either side of the core and provide daylight and great views to the west to help orient residents and guests. The bridge, again, connects to the Terrace Lodge, licensed care building, and in this view you can see the memory care open floor plan with the resident rooms ringing around the core living area. Assisted living homes stack above the memory care with dining in the terrace also on the upper level. In the next slide, we have our independent dining room, rendering of that. On the top floor of the independent building, we located our dining room to take advantage of the great views. One planning issue we had was that the dining room was the only circulation path to connect the two residential wings. We were not sure if that would create some cross-traffic issues at meal times, but it seems to be working quite well. In the next slide, we have our pub. The dining connects to another great amenity space to meet for a drink before dinner or watch the game with friends. A full-service restaurant and bar with a bartender takes its namesake from the original local town, Sweetville, where the site sits today. It was home to a one-room schoolhouse, and one of the residents was able to provide original photos, which are on display. It is always a great opportunity to incorporate local history and flavor and make that connection. In the next slide, we see another popular dining and social spot, Charlie's. It's a bistro and coffee shop located right off the main entry and great room. Charlie's opens to the outdoor terrace and features a gathering table made from one of the trees on site. It's great to have these kinds of active, vibrant spaces right off the main lobby, and it's as busy as any Starbucks. In the next slide, we see the great room. It's located on the main level, entry level, and draws one into the space that leads to the outdoor deck and views to the west. It connects to the Charlie's Pub and Bistro on one side and has a movable wall partition that opens to a multi-purpose room on the other side, allowing a great flow between the different rooms, which works especially well for large parties and events. The great room was designed around a theme of collected treasures and includes antique furniture, original Killam rugs, commissioned art, and artifacts from around the globe. In the next slide, we have our health and fitness club. On the lowest level is the health and fitness club with an indoor pool, exercise equipment, and a group aerobic space. The club is also open to the public, 55 and greater, and is a great way to introduce people to the community. One of the debates we had during the design process was whether the pool or the exercise room should be open to the view, as the back side of the buried into the pool, one is full light space. Finally, to wrap up, in the next slide, I'll show you here one of our independent living homes. This was one of our most popular homes and the first to sell. So actually we sold out all these corner homes because they had this corner sunroom. These homes were 1,575 square feet and featured a flexible sunroom. It was really fun to go back after folks had moved in and see how they were using these rooms. One resident had his set up as a music room with an awesome guitar collection he displayed, and others used it for an office or a formal dining room. And then finally, I just want to thank, on the next slide, thank you all very much for listening today. This was an incredible project to be a part of and really exciting to watch it fill up over the last year. If anyone is ever in Portland, please drop me a line and I would be happy to give you a tour. Thank you.
Jury comments on this project. The jury, yeah, thank you. The jury comments on this project, which we did give the award of merit to, was in particular starting with the site and the sloping site. These folks had to deal with the northwestern rains, and you could see it in some of the slides that they presented to us in the entry, that there was a numerous amount of days of rain on this project. The team apparently scrambled to create irrigation channels and deal with a very sloping site. I think there was over 100 feet of vertical elevation. So we commended the team for dealing with all of that and creating this beautiful environment. Obviously, the views had us at hello on this one. It was a tremendous use of that site and that space. The parking solution was really innovative. We love the fact that they worked into the stacked parking. That was kind of cool. And I haven't seen that on, I think, any senior living project to date that I've ever juried. I know the solution for a valet was something innovative as well to make residents feel very comfortable. If they didn't feel like using the stacked parking, they could always valet the car, which is a terrific solution for all that. We liked the connectivity. It was a very strong theme about this project, that the grounds, the facility, and the programming connected the residents to the natural environment. So it was a kind of an all is one, one is all. We liked that it connected the common spaces of both the licensed care building and the residential independent living building quite easily through this sort of bridge that bridged the gap, and the use of the town clock, that was kind of cool too. In particular, we thought that the open care plan of the memory care space was really well done. And a lot of the projects submitted this year tended to focus on IL, and when it came to memory care, it's sort of just stapled into a typical double-loaded corridor. So we are looking at all aspects of the project if you are going to submit all aspects of the project. From an interiors point of view, I particularly like the interior detailing using wood on some of the ceilings, the really integrated detailing of the wood on some of the columns you saw in dining. I love the use of an on-site tree being used for a live edge communal table. And we really liked a lot of the lighting in the space. It was very fun and very modern and fun. I actually would have liked the fitness center to have the windows, but okay, the pool won out, and certainly either one of those was a win-win. And then we also like the open floor plan of the apartments because they did submit some of those apartments to us and we were able to comment on that. I think there was one other thing that I wanted to mention about this project, because of the sloping site, because of the nature of it, because of the numerous 360,000 plus square feet of the project. It did have a pretty high ticket. It was over $250 a square foot. It's a $90 million project. So we just commented that it's such beauty and amazing final project. But we commended the team on all of their efforts and all of their use of the beautiful environment in this space. And with that, I think I'll turn it back to Rob. And I actually got to view one of the questions while I was on hold, waiting for Joe to finish speaking. And I saw one of the comments came up about one of our first projects. So I don't know if, Lori, you want to bring that up or you want me to read it?
Yeah, Carol, you can go ahead and answer the question.
I'm not going to answer it, and I'll state it.
I think Ray did answer the question. The question may have been asked before he was complete. Go ahead.
Okay, well, the question came up about the development of the first project, that most of the slides were renderings and they were not necessarily completed photography. So we did hear from Ray about when the project will be complete, but you may want to just restate that for the participant.
Yeah, sure. The project is finishing up right now. They're actually moving furniture in this week, and so we're looking to have residents moving in 2 weeks.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ray. Thanks for the question. So we are past our time, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Attendees, if you can stick around, please do. The panelists have all said they're available for, about 10, 12 minutes after, so we can answer questions. The slide that's on the screen now is our last content slide, which is just to describe from the jurors' perspective some of the things that are really helpful in a great submission. Which are good graphics, of course. If the jurors can't read where the rooms are and read the floor plans well, that will be distracting and be confusing. So good plans with good keying is really important. Great photography or great renderings, is super. A great rendering does not make a great design, and our jurors can see through that. So. What the renderings and photographs do is they need to be able to support the story, which leads us to Stephen King there. We don't need Stephen King, to write the submission, but you do need to have someone who has been intimately involved in the project. So if you turn the submission over to your marketing team, just be aware that they're really going to need to really engage the project team to understand the story and what is at the heart of this project that makes it so special. Story. We see it on all of these submissions, particularly the thistle down that David described. The story read straight through that submission from beginning to end and really captures the day. So keep all of those things in mind, please, if you decide to make a submission. So this does conclude our AICES education portion. Thank you, panelists, for attending. We will take a few minutes to answer some questions, which Carol has already done the first one. Before we get there, just please keep an eye on your inbox for a link to the recording of today's session, as well as link to registration information for our next webinar, Smart Buildings, the Internet of Things, and Seniors, coming up on December 12th with Grant Warner. That'll be exciting. So we do have some, again, our panelists will stick around for a couple minutes for some questions. And we did have one already. Let's see if there's others. Ray, it looked like the project, Springs Living at Lake Oswego, it almost felt like a challenge, like someone threw out the gauntlet to someone else. That is, the design team challenged the owner to really think outside the box about senior living, or the owner really challenged the design team to bring something forward. Can you talk about that just for a second about, was there a challenge to that level? Because the project is wonderful and really challenges our perceptions of senior housing.
Sure. I think that that the site brought some challenges that were new to our client. And I think that they kind of looked to us to see how we could solve those. And it was really a transformation of their typical product. We'd worked on a number of their projects, and they were more suburban in style with gable roofs and hardy horizontal and panel siding and decks that were attached to the exterior. And so we really kind of reinvented a modern aesthetic to kind of fit this transitional zone, and brought kind of an elevated effect that was really demanded for in that particular community. So I think it was kind of looking at the situation, and then both rolling up sleeves and kind of thinking about how and what really needed to fit in that location. That's kind of what created that solution.
Okay. Well, thank you. And again, a wonderful project. David, on Thistledown, one of our attendees was asking about what's next. You started to describe what's next with the 4 or 5 additional homes. Do you have a sense of when those might happen?
I did ask the question, but I'm not exactly sure the timing of when the next ones will be built. But the what next question could also be viewed in the context of how could this model be expanded? And currently, right now, we're developing alternative designs, in one sense, similar in spirit to what was done at Thistledown, but different designs, both architecturally and actually different designs environmentally. What about designs for the suburbs? What about designs for urban areas? How could this, could this and how could this design be taken vertically in a very urban configuration? And then when you think about this, who is designing for neighborhoods in South Richmond? Who is designing for neighborhoods in parts of Philadelphia? And could this be brought to communities where the community itself is of a moderate or low income community, and then all of a sudden, due to essentially the vision and determination of a group, find a way to bring a retirement option to some of these other neighborhoods. So those are the kinds of things that I'm working on now, and I'm holding hope for the future that they'll come to life.
Well, that's great. Certainly, as a juror on this last year's design showcases, viewing this submission, immediately I thought, how do we make this happen in every other community, in America? It's fantastic. Just to let you know, attendees, Steve Lindsay, CEO at Garden Spot, he did a SAGE webinar on this project, a full 1 hour just about this project. So that is now recording and available on the SAGE website at the members only page. And SAGE is really happy to be sponsoring post-occupancy evaluation of the project as well through Kansas State University. And that'll be starting in February, and we will then see a white paper come out of that, perhaps a presentation on environments for aging, and certainly a SAGE webinar sometime next year. So if you have any other questions about Thistledown, SAGE, please visit SAGE for that. And Joe, I'm sorry, we're completely running out of time for questions, but an amazing project. The site effort is just tremendous, and the aesthetics and programming is beautiful. So congratulations and thank you. And
thank you, Rob.
Thank you for hosting the Design Showcase Jury, which is going to be happening in January. It's going to be happening at Joe's project. And so I'm really excited for our jurors to be able to visit your site and see it firsthand.
Great.
So thank you. So this wraps up our webinar 2019 EFA Design Showcase. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, panelists, for sharing your information and insights. And we certainly hope everyone has enjoyed today's session and found it worthwhile. In about 15 seconds, you will be prompted to fill out a quick survey. Please provide comments or suggestions, which will help SAGE refine our webinar series. So on behalf of SAGE, thank you all for joining us, and have a great afternoon.